Hello, and welcome to the special edition of CBTV. I'm Matthew J. Rettick, the host of Checks and Balances TV. Today, I'll be presenting our newest installment of the Truth About series. And we have an exciting yet controversial topic to discuss, which millions of Americans own today. What would that be? Bonds. So get ready for the Truth About Bonds. I'm going to share with you the pros and cons, both sides of the coin, the advantages and disadvantages of this useful but many times misunderstood financial product. By the way, you can download our free report on the Truth About Bonds in the download section of our website. You may have originally heard of bonds many years ago from your grandmother, who loved and depended on the income it provided. Bonds have come a long way since then and can be a powerful tool in your investment tool chest. Let's take a look at bonds, starting with the basics and moving on from there. Bonds are really simple to understand. A bond is nothing more than an IOU with interest. When you buy a bond, you're essentially lending your money to someone else for a period of time. While they have the use of your money, they pay you rent or interest for that privilege. When the period of time is over, they give you back your money and stop paying you rent or interest. And it's really not much different than renting a car today. If you rented a car from Hertz or Avis, you would pay the company money for the time you had the use of their car. At the end of the rental period, you return the car and stop paying them a rental fee. And that's exactly how a bond works, except you're renting your money. And you can rent your money or loan your money to a company, as in the form of a corporate bond, or to the government, as in a government bond. You're paid a fee or interest by them for the use of your money, and when the agreed upon time period is over, you get your original investment back. So let's now take a look at an example. Let's say you bought a General Electric 5-year bond with a 5% interest rate. The bond costs $1,000. So in this case, you're loaning General Electric $1,000 for 5 years. And they agree to pay you 5% interest, which means for every year GE has your money, they will pay you $50. Over 5 years, you'll collect $250 in interest, and at the end of the 5 years, GE will repay you your loan of $1,000. By the way, you don't have to hang on to that bond until it matures if you don't want to. You can actually sell it before it matures if you choose to. And again, for even more information about bonds, download our free report, The Truth About Bonds. Now let's talk about the risks in bonds. Bonds are fairly safe, but there are some risks involved in owning bonds today. Let's look at a few of the most common risks associated with bonds. The first risk is default risk. A bond is safe as long as the entity you loaned your money to is still in business when it's time to pay you back your investment or when it matures. If they go out of business or default, you could lose all of your money. The second risk is credit risk. What if the company doesn't go completely bankrupt but falls on hard financial times? If that happens, the value of your bond may fall if you try to sell it before it matures. Let's say you paid $1,000 for a 5-year bond yielding 5%. But 2 years later, the company you bought it from is in the news with big financial problems. Do you think that someone is going to be willing to pay you the full $1,000 for your bond now that the company is in financial trouble? Well, chances are the value or price of your bond will decrease under those circumstances. The third risk is interest rate risk. Let's say you bought a bond and 2 years later interest rates are 2% higher than they are today. Do you think someone will want to pay you $1,000 for your 5% bond when he or she could go down the street and use the same $1,000 to get a 7% yield? I don't think so. Your bond is no longer worth $1,000. You can sell your bond if you want to at that time, but you'll have to take much less than $1,000 to get out. In fact, your bond will probably be worth only around $700. The fourth risk is inflationary risk. And this happens when you buy a bond and earn a fixed rate of return, but inflation rises over the same period of time that you own your bond. And this really hurts you in two ways. First, the interest payments you are receiving are the same, but the prices you're paying for things in your everyday life are becoming more expensive. And second, when you buy the bond, or when the bond matures rather, the principal you are repaid is worth less as well. It really is a double whammy. And the fifth risk is call risk. With bonds that are callable, there's the risk that the insurer may call you. What does that mean? Well, callable bonds basically give the insurer the right to pay you off early before the bond matures. Now, why would they want to do that? For the same reason you might want to refinance your mortgage. If you can pay off your 8% mortgage and obtain a 4% loan, you will save a bunch of money on interest. Remember, bonds are a debt to the issuer, and if they can lower their debt payments, they will certainly want to do that. And remember, for even more information about bonds, download our free report, The Truth About Bonds. Now, here are some simple cures for common bond risks. If you notice, many of the risks I've outlined here have to do with possibly losing money if you need to sell a bond before it matures. The simple cure for this is to only buy bonds that you can reasonably expect to hold until maturity. If you hold a bond to maturity, you will get 100% of your money back. That means if you buy a bond that will mature during your lifetime, you avoided all the risks of lower values during the period that you own the bond. If you're 65 years old, that means you're probably making a mistake to buy a 20-year bond or longer. But at 65, you could probably buy a bond that will mature in 10 to 12 years or so. The second way to accomplish the same thing is to have enough liquid money available outside of your bonds so you never find yourself in a position where you are forced to sell at a time when your bond values may be down. Now let's talk about state and municipal bonds. State governments, city and local municipalities also issue bonds. While not quite as safe as government bonds, state and municipal bonds are virtually free from default risk. There is, however, one well-known example of a municipality that defaulted on their bonds back in the 1980s. Remember who it was? Orange County, California. Outside of that, though, defaults by states and municipalities are far and few between. However, states and municipalities are facing lower tax revenue and higher expenses. At some point in the future, it is possible, if not likely, we will see states or municipalities going bankrupt. All you have to do is read the local paper or hear about the financial problems that many local cities and towns are having today to realize that this may be a possibility. Let's talk, though, now about taxes on bond interest. Bond interest is generally taxed in the same way as the money you earn from your job or business, which is considered ordinary income. But not all bonds are subject to federal income taxes. So let's talk about tax benefits of state and municipal bonds. State and municipal bonds enjoy special tax treatment. Their interest is exempt from federal income taxes. These are known as tax-free bonds. You might call these single tax-free bonds because they're free from a single tax, which is federal taxes. But what if you buy a bond issued by the state you live in? Good news here, that's known as a double tax-free bond because it won't be subject to either federal or state income taxes. And if you're following along, then you can probably guess that a triple tax-free bond is one issued by a municipality in which you live. That bond won't be taxed by your city, your state, or the federal government. Now, when is municipal bonds interest not tax-free? When you retire. When you begin to receive Social Security income, all of your municipal bond interest is included in determining whether any of your Social Security income is going to be taxed. For that reason, your supposedly tax-free municipal bond interest could easily cause you to pay taxes on your Social Security income. I have a friend who once asked, "If it's tax-free, Matt, why do they make you put it down on your annual tax return?" The answer? Because they can now count it against you for Social Security tax purposes. Now let's cover high-yield bonds. You've heard of those before, haven't you? Well, remember the old saying, a rose by any other name would still be a rose. There's something similar to this in the bond world as well. Years ago, there was a big scandal over what were known as junk bonds. People lost a lot of money when companies that issued these bonds went out of business. It left a very bad taste in many people's mouths, and rightfully so. In a weird twist of logic, because it was so hard to sell those bonds back then, the bond industry simply changed the name of junk bonds. The new name? High-yield bonds. But alas, a junk bond by any other name is still a junk bond. According to a bond default rate survey included in the U.S. Municipal Bond Fairness Act of 2008, it was reported that investment-grade bonds only defaulted roughly 2 to 4% of the time. while junk bonds defaulted 31 to over 42% of the time, so buyer beware. There are other types of bonds, such as convertible bonds and zero coupon bonds, that I won't cover in this recording. However, you will learn all about them in my free report, The Truth About Bonds. As you can see, bonds can be an important asset to own. They serve to potentially protect your principal, provide you with a stable interest rate, and can even increase in value if interest rates drop after you buy your bond. But bonds can also lose money if interest rates increase after you buy your bond, and you can potentially lose everything if the company that issued the bond goes out of business. Government and municipal bonds greatly decrease the risk that you'll lose your principal because these bonds are backed by the local, state, or federal government. The trade-off is they tend to pay less interest. Most bond risk can be avoided by either buying only bonds that you can reasonably expect to hold until they mature, or by maintaining enough cash in your portfolio so you can use that cash instead of having to sell your bonds if an unexpected financial emergency arises. The bottom line here is that bonds probably have a place in most portfolios. The percentage they deserve depends on your own situation and financial goals. If you're going to purchase any type of bond, consider working with a competent professional financial advisor who can help you navigate through all of the different options out there today. Also, be sure to request our free report, The Truth About Bonds, by logging onto our website and downloading this in-depth report. We want to arm you with the truth about this important financial product so you'll know if it's the right investment for you. And revisit the download section of our website for additional information and other Truth About reports on many popular investment products available today. As a quick reminder, be sure to watch a new edition of Checks and Balances TV every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the balanced truth you need to financially succeed. I'm Matthew J. Rettick, the host of Checks and Balances TV. Thanks for watching this special edition of CBTV. And remember, you can become financially independent. You just need confidence and determination. Until next time, dump debt, invest wisely, believe in yourself, and make it happen.